Hi, I'm Annie and I'm from New York. Please like and subscribe to STA.
Woohoo! And I win once again.
That's so unfair. You always cheat.
Don't be a crybaby.
Annie, you always have to behave like a barbarian. Michael could have injured himself badly.
It was an accident.
I'm fine. We were just playing. Oh, I know how wild Annie becomes. She just doesn't know when to stop.
Sometimes I wished I didn't have a mom because she was always saying horrible stuff to me. I did the total opposite of what my mom desired. For instance, I played soccer and I was the best at it.
Annie! Annie! Annie!
My best friend was a boy. Michael and I were like peanut butter and jelly, and sometimes we even dressed like each other, which drove my mom up the wall.
Annie, what on earth are you wearing?
Hello to you too, Mom. What's in the bag?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. Look, I found this cute dress for you. You have such a great figure. I'm sure you will look so cute.
Ew, Mom, you know I hate pink.
What did I do to have a daughter who likes being a tomboy? Your mom is so dramatic.
More like annoying. If it wasn't for you in my life, I would probably be the most miserable person in the world.
You mean a lot to me too, Annie.
Well, our happy friendhood was short-lived because all of a sudden and out of the blue, I saw moving trucks at Michael's house.
We're moving back to Italy.
Why do you guys have to move to another country?
My parents are separating now, so Mom has to move back to Italy.
How am I going to live without you?
Hey, we can still see each other over the internet.
That's not the same.
Well, long story short, Michael and I contacted each other a couple of times, and then I stopped once I went to high school. Even though I was one of the smart kids at school, the friends I had were a group of bad girls who got up to mischief all the time. They took up most of my time, and usually I ended up in trouble.
Annie, come on. It's your turn to splash paint all over the principal's car.
I wouldn't do that if I were you.
The next day, Mom was called to school, and she was so disappointed in me.
I am so sorry about Annie's behavior. I promise it won't ever happen again. Annie is actually one of our top achievers, and the only problem we have with her is her behavior. I have a suggestion that might help. I would do anything to help Annie be more disciplined. Take this. It's information for the exchange student program. Since she is a smart girl, I think she would qualify.
Mom seemed eager for me to try the exchange program out, as if she was eager for me to get out of her space.
Annie, I think your principal is right. This is exactly what you need.
Oh, you have been waiting to get rid of me for years. I'm not going anywhere.
Fine, suit yourself. Oh, and by the way, the trip was in Italy.
Michael was in Italy, and it got me thinking. I sent Michael a message, letting him know about the exchange program. I thought he would ignore me since I didn't talk to him for a while, but he was happy to hear from me. So I packed my bags and took the offer to explore Italy. When I was finally there, I looked around the airport searching for Michael, and then a hand touched my shoulder, and stood before me was a gorgeous guy. I couldn't believe how much he had changed.
Wow, you turned out to be quite the hunk.
And you look super gorgeous as always. Welcome to Italy, my friend.
I felt so happy to see him, and when he took me to his house, his mom was even more excited to see me. I missed her cooking. She cooked the best pasta ever.
So glad to have you here. Come on, I made your favorite.
Michael looked at me differently, like he liked me, and I wasn't sure as yet if I felt the same, even though he looked so fine.
Do you still play soccer?
No, when I got to high school, a lot changed.
I can see, but you shouldn't give up on what you love.
Michael had a point, and I was going to use my time in Italy getting back into my love for sport. The next day, I was going to start my first day as an exchange student, and when I entered with Michael next to me, girls looked at me sternly.
Looks like you have a lot of admirers in the school, Mr. Charmer Boy.
Yeah, but none of them are my type.
Oh yeah? What is your type?
You.
My face turned red when he said that, and because I wasn't looking, I accidentally bumped into another guy who looked like he stepped out of a popular rock band.
Watch where you're walking, girl.
I'm so...
Before I could apologize, he cut me off and looked viciously at Michael.
And you! Don't think I forgot about what you did. I'm still going to get you back for that.
Hey, are you okay? What was he talking about?
That's Brent the jerk. He's my stepbrother.
What? How come you never mentioned him before?
Because I only found out when we moved to Italy. My dad chose to go back to Brent's mom, and my mom followed him here, trying her best to convince him not to leave us, but Brent's mom was rich, so he chose her.
Wow, I'm so sorry you had to go through all that.
I'm okay now. Brent is a spoiled brat. He tried to steal test papers from the principal's office, and I saw him, so I told the principal. That's why he's mad.
You did the right thing. Don't feel bad about it.
Later after school, I had to wait for Michael to finish his football practice, and then I saw Brent sneaking into the change room, so I followed him. I found him fiddling with one of the lockers, and then I bravely stood behind him.
What do you think you're doing?
None of your business.
What are you doing in the boys' change rooms? I asked you first. What are you doing? I don't have to tell you anything. Just because you're rich and spoiled, don't think you can always have your way.
Brent suddenly came close to my face, and I felt almost taken by his hazel brown eyes and his strong jawline. But then I remembered what Michael had told me.
I'm not scared of you.
Don't believe everything my stepbrother tells you.
Later that afternoon, while Michael and I were doing our homework together like old times, I felt a little awkward because every time he completed an answer, he glared at me.
I miss this. Us doing homework together.
Me too, but if you keep on staring at me, you'll have no homework to submit in class tomorrow.
I can't help myself. You are...
Michael, there's something I need to tell you. While you were at football practice, I followed Brent into the boys' change room.
Did something happen between you two?
No, of course not. I saw him fiddling at one of the lockers and then I told him off.
Good. He's always up to no good. It's best you stay far away from him.
Yeah, Michael surprised me with a kiss, and I was speechless.
I really like you, Annie.
Wow, I don't know what to say.
What? You don't feel the same? Do you like someone else?
Huh? No,
You don't think I'm good enough?
Michael, we're friends.
Date me, please. I think we're meant for each other.
I felt so under pressure. I didn't want him to feel bad, so I said yes.
Okay, I guess.
Dating Michael had to take some getting used to. Every time he kissed me, I felt so weird. And then the next shocking thing happened at the school parking lot.
Are you alright? Oh my gosh, babe, are you okay?
Yeah. That guy would have knocked me if it wasn't for... I didn't get a chance to say thank you to Brent, and apparently the scooter guy's brakes were not working. And as for Michael, he didn't even want to acknowledge how Brent saved me. Brent kind of rescued me. Did you see that?
I would have rescued you too, but it happened so fast.
During lunch break, Michael was at football practice again, so I was on my own. I tried to find a quiet spot to sit, and then I saw Brent sitting under a tree. This was my chance to thank him. Hey, I just wanted to say thank you for coming to my rescue this morning.
No worries. So, how is dating my stepbrother going for you?
It's good.
What did he tell you about me?
I think you already know. You like drawing?
Yeah, it keeps my mind off negative people like my brother.
Well, I've known Michael from childhood, and there's nothing negative about him.
Huh! That's what you think. He is very good at manipulating people.
Before I could say another word, Michael startled me from behind.
Didn't I tell you to stay away from this guy?
Michael, I thought you were at football practice.
Yes, I was. And then I got a message from a friend that you were talking to this jerk when I told you to stay away from him.
Michael started raising his voice at me, and Brent got up to defend me.
Hey, you can't just shout at her. And you're the jerk, not me.
Brent and Michael started at each other fiercely, and then Michael pushed Brent against the tree.
Michael, what is wrong with you?
Come on, let's go.
No, you're acting ridiculous. I came here to thank Brent for rescuing me this morning. Why are you acting like such a jerk?
You calling me a jerk? After all that my mom and I have done for you. We invited you to our house. I was your best friend when your crazy mom kept nagging you for being different.
You're so selfish.
I felt my anger build up, and then I slapped Michael. And as I blindly stormed off, I bumped into a pole and collapsed. I don't know how long I was unconscious, but when I opened my eyes, I was happy to see my mom.
Hey, sweetie.
Mom, what are you doing here?
You blacked out for 2 days, hon. Of course I would be here.
You came all the way to Italy for me?
Yes, you are my everything, Annie. While you were away, I became lonely. Do you want to come back home?
Not just yet, Mom. I signed up for a top-class girls' soccer club. I'm waiting to see if I got in.
Soccer? So that's what you want to do for the rest of your life?
It's what I love, Mom. I never stopped you from being a beauty queen.
You're right. I'm sorry for being a horrible mom.
You're not a horrible mom. I'm sorry for not being the daughter you always wanted.
Hey, you're perfect just the way you are.
It felt good to hear Mom say those words, and while we were bonding, Michael entered with a lot of balloons and flowers.
I'll leave you two now. Take care of my baby girl, Michael. Hey, babe, I'm so sorry about what happened. I didn't mean for you to end up in a hospital.
It's not your fault. The doctor said there was a lack of iron in my blood. Every time Michael randomly kissed me, I felt so awkward. I didn't feel any chemistry with him.
What's wrong?
Michael, I don't feel what you're feeling. I've always liked you, just as a friend.
So you were playing with my feelings? Or maybe you like Brent the jerk?
Michael started acting irrationally again, and then Brent surprisingly entered the room.
You should stop calling me a jerk, brother. I did nothing wrong to you. What are you doing here? Get out, now!
I want him to stay.
I told you he is not a good person. He lies, and he does all sorts of bad things to people. That's not true, and you know that. The only reason he's angry at me is because his mom lied to my dad. He was never my dad's son, but he still loves you. I don't have a problem with you. Stop lying!
Michael then went bizarre and grabbed my drips pole and charged after Brent.
Michael, stop!
No, I won't let him have you too!
When Michael refused to listen, I pressed a button next to my bed. The security guards ran in and held Michael back from harming Brent. Later that evening, the hospital let me go home. Mom had to rush back to New York, and when I was at Michael's house, he was not around, and his mom opened up to me.
This is all my fault. I lied to Michael about who his father was because I didn't want him to learn the truth about his real father, who ended up in prison when I was only 3 weeks pregnant.
Yeah, he seems to have a lot of anger.
When Brent's father found out I lied, he left us and came back to Italy. I had no choice but to also come back home. This was my mother's house.
Everything will be okay. When Michael eventually came home, he didn't say a word to his mom or me. He hardly even ate his dinner. And after I helped Michael's mom with the dishes, I decided to face him.
I don't want to talk to you.
Well, I want to talk to you. I know you're hurt inside because of your dad not being your real dad, but you can't just blame Brent for that. He was just born, and none of it is his fault.
You don't know anything.
I know you, and I know that you are a good person. Don't let your parents' mistakes determine who you are.
It's hard. It's been so hard to understand. I was also just born into a lie, and when I found out, I just lost it.
I know, but you are not alone, and no one hates you. You need to accept the truth and then move on.
Thank you. I'm sorry I pushed you to date me. When I saw you, I felt like my old self again, and I
understand, and I'm still here. The next day at school, when I saw Brent, I sat down next to him and things seemed cool between us.
I'm so glad to see you're out of hospital. How do you feel?
I'm great. Listen, I'm sorry I judged you before.
It's okay. And that day in the change room, I was opening my locker. Believe it or not, I'm also on the football team, but I never play. I'm their standby guy.
Thank you for clearing that up. When Michael appeared at the table, Brent got up to leave because he didn't want any trouble.
I'll just go now. See you around, Annie. Wait, you don't have to leave. I'm sorry. I was wrong to be angry at you. Okay, thanks. I guess I'm sorry too.
Aw, this is so overwhelming. I guess we can all be friends now.
Or more than friends. Hey, don't push your luck now.
I finally received the phone call I've been waiting for. I was accepted in the biggest soccer club as an intern. My dreams were coming true, and I was sure glad to celebrate the great news with my two best friends. Hi, my name is Pixie, and I'm from Ireland. My parents are the most controlling parents on the planet. But before I tell you my story, please like and subscribe to our amazing channel. Why are my parents so controlling, you ask? Well, when I was 8 years old, my parents carried me to the mall to get a pair of skates. While they were talking to the sales clerk, I saw this cute puppy at the store entrance. I went over and patted the puppy, but then it ran away from me. Being 8, of course, I chased the puppy. It was all fun and games till the puppy ran down some stairs and I followed. I tripped and tumbled down the stairs and must have blacked out for a few minutes because when I opened my eyes, a crowd of people had surrounded me. I looked around, and suddenly my parents burst through the crowd.
Oh, Pixie, are you okay?
Mom hugged me, but when I tried to get up, my ankle hurt. Ouch!
Let's get you to the hospital.
What Mom and Dad thought to be just a visit to the hospital to get my ankle checked out turned into a meeting with social services, who reported my parents for negligence. A judge sentenced them to 6 months of parental classes. My parents were furious. Now, at age 17, Mom and Dad still treated me like an 8-year-old kid. Something about them not wanting any of my bad decisions to reflect on them as parents. Today was the football game at school, and I really wanted to go, but of course, my controlling mother did not want me to go. I glared at Mom, who was basting a turkey on the kitchen counter. Mom, all of my friends are going to the football game. You can't keep me here forever.
I can keep you here till you're 18.
I grabbed the tray from Mom's hands and flung it to the ground. I hate it here. I stormed off to my bedroom and slammed the door behind me. I was totally tired of my parents telling me what to eat, what to wear, and what type of music to listen to. I wasn't even allowed to date. All I wanted to do was go to the game to see Sloan, the cutest boy in the entire school. Over the years, my parents didn't allow me to do anything. But through it all, I had my best friend, Heather, to confide in. So as usual, I gave her a call to complain about my parents.
You know, I've been crushing on Sloan for 3 years.
And I also know Sloan is out of your league.
Oh, really?
Girl, Sloan is the captain of the football team. is at the top of the food chain at school, and you're forgetting one very important detail. Sloan has a girlfriend.
Minor details. I'll just break them up, and you'll help me.
Break them up?
Why not? People break up all the time.
Pixie, I'm not going to help you break up Sloan and Jana because you want dibs on Sloan.
Fine, I'll do it myself. I hung up on Heather. If she didn't want to help me, I'd find a way to do it myself. The next day at school, as I walked through the hall, Sloan and Jana walked by. I smiled at Sloan, and guess what? He smiled back. I was so into the moment that I didn't notice a group of boys coming out of the science lab with a huge papier-mâché volcano. I bumped into them and fell with a thud to the floor. If that wasn't embarrassing enough, the volcano fell on top of me and some of the goo from inside the volcano splashed into my eyes. I wiped my eyes, but it was still blurry when someone extended their hand to me and I took it.
Are you okay?
Was that Sloan? Thank you, Sloan. Laughter surrounded me and my face grew red.
As if, loser. Your knight in shining armor is Geeky Galvin.
I wiped my eyes again, and there stood Geeky Garvin with his acne-covered face, holding a few napkins towards me. I looked in Sloan's direction. Was that pity in his eyes? It felt as though my heart had broken into a million pieces. I covered my face with my hands and ran away.
Run, Pixie, run!
Another roar of laughter escaped the crowd. I ran into the bathroom and sat in one of the stalls. After a few minutes, the bathroom door opened and a group of girls came in chattering. It was Jana and her minions.
So, Jana, how was your date with Tegan? You went on a date with Sloan's best friend?
Of course. I did it, and it was worth it. He's a much better kisser than Sloan, and he took me to the fanciest restaurant in town.
Don't you feel bad for doing that to Sloan?
No, should I? I'm the most popular girl in school. Why should I only date one guy?
Jana and her friends giggled. The bell rang and they left the bathroom. I knew what I needed to do. The next day, as I walked into the cafeteria, my eyes fell on Sloan and Jana. I sat a few tables away, but I kept my eyes on Jana. All I needed to do was catch Jana and Tegan in a compromising situation, and Sloan would be all mine. My chance came 15 minutes later when Jana kissed Sloan and walked out of the cafeteria. With my phone in hand, my heart pounded as I followed Jana, who disappeared under the bleachers. I tiptoed towards the bleachers, and there was Jana making out with Tegan. I pressed record on my phone and began taping. They were so into each other that they didn't even see me. Suddenly, a ball slammed into the side of my head. Ouch! I fell to the ground and my phone fell from my hands. Tegan and Jana turned and saw me.
What are you doing here, loser?
Jana looked at the phone on the ground next to me.
Were you videoing us?
No, I wasn't videotaping anything. I grabbed my phone and stood up.
You little liar.
Jana tried to grab my phone, but I ran. A few minutes later, I burst into the cafeteria breathless and sent the video to Sloan. I slid under a table just as Jana and Tegan entered the cafeteria.
Where is she?
She scanned the cafeteria looking for me. I watched as Sloan checked his phone. He looked shocked, then angry, and I smiled smugly. I couldn't believe my plan was coming together.
Jana, what is this?
Sloan walked over to Jana, and I got up from under the table and sat on a chair to get a better view.
What is it, Sloan?
Sloan shoved his phone into Jana's hands. Jana grimaced as she looked at the phone.
This? What is this? Are you trying to make me look like an idiot?
Jana's eyes locked with mine, and I smiled.
Babe, it's not what it looks like.
Sloan walked over to Tegan.
And as for you,
I watched in horror as Sloan punched Tegan in the nose and Tegan doubled over.
Sloan, stop this!
Jana then turned and pointed in my direction.
You! This is all your fault!
Jana ran over to me and grabbed me before I could get through the cafeteria door. Chairs and tables crashed to the ground as both fights ensued.
Fight!
Suddenly, the cafeteria doors burst open, and Mr. Hickley marched into the cafeteria and pulled us all apart.
What in the world is going on here?
Mr. Hickley pulled Jana and me apart, then Tegan and Sloan.
The four of you to my office, now.
Mr. Hickley gave us detention for a week. The next day, after detention, I waited until Sloan was alone before I approached him. Hi, Sloan.
Hi, Dixie.
Actually, it's Pixie. There was an awkward silence between us. Then I did it. Do you want to go on a date with me? Honestly, I expected him to say no, but I was over the moon with what he said next.
Sure, why not? There's a new restaurant I'd like to check out. I'll pick you up at 7 p.m. on Saturday.
That night as I lay in bed, I couldn't believe it. I, Pixie Ryan, had a date with the Sloan Walsh. Now, I had to find a way to go on the date without my parents finding out. On Saturday night, I lay under the covers when Mom walked into my bedroom.
Honey, I'm so sorry you're not feeling well. Uncle Thomas will surely miss you at his party tonight. Are you sure you don't want us to stay home with you?
No, I'll be okay. You and Uncle Thomas only see each other once a year. And someone has to beat Aunt Maggie at karaoke tonight. Mom laughed. She kissed me on the forehead.
Good night, Pixie. Call us if you need anything.
I will. Mom turned off the light and closed my bedroom door behind her. As soon as my parents drove off, I jumped out of bed and turned on the light. I removed my robe. Under it, I wore a cute black mini dress. If my parents saw me in a dress this short, they'd have my head. A few minutes later, the doorbell rang. I grabbed my purse and ran downstairs to open the door. When I opened it, there stood Sloan looking as handsome as ever with a bouquet of flowers in his hands.
You look beautiful. These are for you.
Sloan handed me the flowers. Thank you. They're beautiful.
Are you ready to get this date started?
Most definitely. Our first date was amazing. On the way to the restaurant, Sloan and I laughed and chatted as though we'd known each other our whole lives. At one point in the car, he even held my hand and kissed it as we drove. When we got to the restaurant, he pulled out my chair and even helped me order because the entire menu was in French. Sloan said his grandfather was from Paris and he visited him over the summer. After dinner, we drove to the beach and walked along the sand underneath the moonlight while holding hands. When Sloan walked me to my front door, I must admit that I was a bit nervous. Thank you. Tonight was perfect. I had a great time.
I had a great time as well. I'd like to take you out again if that's okay with you.
I'd like that. Sloan leaned over to kiss me. I was so nervous. Just as our lips were about to touch, the unimaginable happened. I let out the loudest, smelliest belch ever. I was mortified. Sloan looked at me blankly for a few seconds before he burst out laughing.
That was a good one.
I breathed a sigh of relief and couldn't help but laugh at myself. Sloan then pulled me into a kiss.
I'll see you at school on Monday. Enjoy the rest of your night.
I entered the house and raced towards my bedroom. I couldn't wait to tell Heather about my night. I called Heather a few times before she answered. I apologized for how I treated her and she forgave me. I told her all about my night.
So you really have Sloan. How do you feel?
I feel awesome. It's going to be a bit difficult hiding him from my parents, but he's worth it. Heather and I chatted for a while longer and then hung up. I couldn't wait to go back to school the following week. Monday morning when I arrived at school, Sloan stood by my locker and I smiled.
Hi, Pixie.
Hi, Sloan. Sloan leaned in and kissed me. When I opened my eyes, suddenly Jonna was there. Her hands were on her hips and she tapped her foot impatiently as her eyes bore straight into my soul.
Can I walk you to class?
I nodded and Sloan draped his arm around my shoulder. Throughout the day, Jonna found ways to make my day miserable. First, she spilled her smoothie on my clothes during the second period.
Oops.
Then after science, when I got to my locker, it was sealed shut.
Can't get your locker open, loser?
In math class, Mr. Johnson told Jonna to get rid of her gum, and guess where she got rid of it? Yup, you guessed it. She stuck it in my hair. I had to grab some scissors and cut it out. After lunch, the janitor left a bucket of dirty water in the hallway. Jonna snatched my bag from my shoulder and dangled it over the bucket.
Pixie, your bag looks a little dirty. Let me clean that up for you.
Jonna dumped my book bag in it while her chump friends laughed. That afternoon, I spoke to Sloan about it, and he said he'd take care of it. The next day, I saw Jonna and Sloan in a heated argument. When he approached me, he smiled.
You don't need to worry about Jana anymore. Let's just say her father works for my father, and I told her if she ever messed with you again, her father wouldn't have a job.
Thanks, babe. I kissed Sloan. Our relationship was great. It was a bit tricky at times having to sneak around, but I guess that was one thing that made it so much fun. The fact that I wasn't allowed to do it. But then, something happened that altered my future forever. It was the school's Halloween dance. Sloan was Batman and I was Catwoman. At the Halloween dance, we were having a great time. I went to get Sloan and I some drinks, but when I returned, Sloan was kissing someone dressed in the same costume that I was. Sloan! Sloan looked up in shock. I pulled the costume off from the mysterious Catwoman, and Jonna had the biggest smirk on her face.
I'm sorry, babe. I thought it was you.
Sloan, Jonna is a whole foot taller than I am. How could you not know it wasn't me? Just take me home.
I've got a better idea. Why don't we take you home?
My eyes widened. I turned slowly and came face to face with my very angry parents. Mom! Dad! What are you doing here?
You're asking us what we're doing here while you're in that tight leather outfit looking like a stripper? You're leaving now, and your father and I decided to send you to boarding school until your 21st birthday.
Jonna gave me a wave as Mom grabbed me by the arm and dragged me to the car as Dad followed behind. Mom and Dad pulled me out of school, and 2 days later, we were loading the car with my things to send me off to boarding school. As I packed my suitcase, in the back of the car, Heather walked up.
Hi, Pixie. I'm sorry that you have to leave.
So am I. I guess I deserve it. I shouldn't have meddled with Jonna and Sloane's relationship. Just then, Mom walked out of the house.
Hi, Heather. How are you? Pixie, honey, are you all packed? If we're going to catch our flight, we need to leave now.
I sighed and hugged Heather.
I'll miss you.
I'll miss you too. I promise to write every day.
Heather and I pulled away, tears streaming down both our faces. Mom and Dad got into the car, and I hopped into the back seat. I rolled my window down. The car was about to roll off when Heather tapped the trunk of the car and Dad stopped. Heather ran to my window and hugged me. Then she whispered something that made my pores raise.
Pixie, one more thing before you go. I told your parents about you and Sloan. I was the one who sent them pictures of you at the Halloween dance. Jana was just the icing on the cake. Now that you're out of the picture, he's all mine.
Heather pulled away and Dad drove off. I was beyond shocked. My own best friend. She was the one who'd betrayed me? To say I was shocked was an understatement. Do you think I deserved what Heather did to me? Leave your answers in the comments below.
Hello, I'm Nina from Arizona. Please like and subscribe. My mom died when I was just a baby, and my very protective dad worked very hard to provide for me. On my 5th birthday, he dressed up as my favorite Disney princess, and when my friends made fun of him, he blew glitter in their faces. It was perfect. I was Daddy's little girl, and because of him, I got really into sports. At school, I was the captain of the wrestling team, and no one dared mess with me. Well, except the cheerleaders and their captain, Jenny, who kept making fun of me for looking like a boy.
Well, well, well. If it isn't the captain of the boys' club.
Get out of the way, Jenny. This is not the time to make fun of me. I was so out of breath because I was carrying seats to the gymnasium for an upcoming event. As I walked past Jenny, she tripped me and I fell. I tried to get up, but my knee was all scraped and bleeding. Jenny and her cheerleader Barbies were busy laughing when a girl walked up to them and threw a hard punch right at Jenny's perfect nose.
Ouch! Who are you?
The new girl stood toe-to-toe with Jenny, staring her down. I'm Lola, and if you mess with Nina again, I'll break your fake nose. Lola flipped her purple hair at Jenny, then helped me stand up. Thanks. How do you know my name? Long story. Come on, we'll be late for class. As I limped down the hallway, Jamie, the captain of the boys' wrestling team, spotted me. I had a huge crush on him, but I'd never tell him because he was Jenny's boyfriend. Oh my god, Nina, what happened? Jenny happened. She hates Nina because of you. What do you mean? It's obvious. Jenny is Jamie's girlfriend, but he likes you, Nina. Jamie looked so embarrassed. Jamie, is that true? Yeah. I like you and Jenny knows. I'm so sorry she's mean to you because of me. Don't be sorry. I like you too. We stared at each other, smiling. I forgot all about my hurt knee and walked toward him. He reached out for my hand, but Lola jumped between us and blocked him from touching me. What are you doing? He's not a good match for you, Nina. Trust me. But you don't even know him. I do. Lola looked so sad as she said that. Just then, Jamie's teammates walked by and dragged him away with them. See you later, Jamie. He turned and winked at me, then blew me a kiss. Oh my god, did you see that? Yeah, I did, and so did Jenny. A few meters away, Jenny was leaning against the wall, arms crossed and a scowl on her face. Uh-oh, looks like she's planning your funeral. Whatever, Jamie just kissed me. Yeah, I know it wasn't an actual kiss, but it was still a kiss.
A couple of weeks later, my team and I traveled to another city for the annual school wrestling championships. When we arrived, I opened my hotel room and let out a scream. Lola was sitting on the bed, smiling at me. Lola, what are you doing here?
I came to support you, silly.
She got off the bed and hugged me, but I hesitated. I had so many questions. How did she get here before us? Who let her into my room? It was a little creepy. I woke up the next day to Lola standing over my bed, staring at me. Good morning, sunshine. Time to get ready. You have a big day ahead. She was wearing a t-shirt with my photo and name on it. Where did you even get that?
Oh, this. I had it made specially for today. Do you like it?
I had one made for you, too. She took an identical shirt from her bag and handed it to me.
Come on, wear it so we can match.
She looked so excited and I didn't have the heart to disappoint her, so I wore it. She teared up and hugged me so tightly. You look perfect, Nina. I laughed awkwardly. When I walked into the arena, I was nervous, but Lola cheered so loud that everyone joined her. When I won, she was close to hysterical. And just when I thought she couldn't get crazier, she did some cartwheels. The crowd jumped to their feet and cheered for her. She blew kisses at them, then took a bow.
Congratulations!
Lola hugged me, but someone pulled her away.
Get away from her, you crazy woman!
Dad, what are you doing here?
I came to surprise you, but then I saw you with her.
Hello, Harry. I see the years haven't been kind to you.
Do you two know each other?
Are you going to tell her, or should I?
Tell me what? That I'm Melissa, your mother. My what? But Dad told me you were dead. He lied to you. If you don't believe me, then let me prove it. She took out wet wipes from her bag and started wiping off her makeup. Now that I noticed, I could tell she was wearing a lot of makeup. Then she took off her purple wig and freed her long blonde hair. Without her makeup and wig, she looked so much older. Dad, why would you keep me away from my mom?
This woman has never been a mother to you, Nina. She is evil, and you cannot trust her.
And I can trust you? You told me she was dead. He took a step toward me, but I raised my hands. Stay away from me! I ran out of the arena and hid in the school bus. But a few minutes later, Melissa joined me. Tears were rolling down her eyes. I'm really sorry I ruined your day. My day? You ruined my life! I know, and I'm really sorry. She handed me a piece of paper. This is my address. I have a room ready for you. I want you to come and live with me. I was going to tell her no, but then she broke into loud sobs and fell to her knees. Okay, stop. I'll move in with you. Melissa stood up and jumped with joy. Yay! Just like that, her tears were gone. Life at Melissa's house was great. Every day she'd pick me up from school and we'd go shopping. It was so much fun. And even though I missed my dad, I never called him. One day, Jamie came over to visit. Every time I got close to him, Melissa got between us. Literally. When it was time for him to leave, he leaned in to kiss me, but Melissa dropped a stack of plates, and we both jumped. You need to leave now, Jamie. Jamie looked terrified of her and ran out the door before I could stop him. I turned to Melissa with blind rage. Why did you do that? I'm your mother, and I know what's best for you. You've only been my mother for 5 minutes. That's enough, young lady. Go to your room. I walked off, wondering if I'd made a mistake picking her over Dad. The next morning, I walked into the dining room and found Melissa sitting with a stranger. Nina, meet Dale, your new private tutor. You'll be homeschooled from now on. Very funny. I'm going to school. They won't let you in. I already withdrew you from that poor people's school. You can't do that. Dad won't allow it. I'm calling him right now. As I dialed Dad's number, she grabbed my phone and dropped it into a jug full of juice. Oh my God, what's wrong with you? You have everything you need here. You don't need to go outside and mix with poor people. I grabbed my bag and headed for the door, but when I tried to open it, a blaring alarm went off. It covered my ears and yelled at Melissa. What's that? I installed a new security system to keep you safe. Turn it off! I need to leave now! You're never leaving this house, Nina. How did Melissa go from my BFF Lola to my mom? And now to the scary woman in front of me. She picked up her purse and walked past me. I'm going shopping. As soon as she was gone, I pleaded with Dale. I have to get out of here. Please help me.
What's so bad about living here? You're being so ungrateful to Melissa.
She's keeping me prisoner! Dale laughed.
Oh, don't be so dramatic. This place is a palace, not a prison.
Dale was clearly not going to help me, so I grabbed his expensive laptop and ran with it to my bathroom. Dale hot on my heels. I turned on the bathtub and held the laptop over the water. I'm going to drop this in the tub if you don't give me the security code for the front door. I let the laptop slip a little and Dale froze.
Okay. Code is 9764.
Now please give me my laptop. I'm sorry. I dropped the laptop in the tub and ran.
Are you crazy?
As he tried to save it, I unlocked the door and sprinted down the driveway. I hailed a cab and asked the driver to take me to Dad's office across town. When we arrived, I borrowed the driver's phone and called Dad. As soon as he picked up, I started to cry.
I'm so sorry, Dad. I should have listened to you. Nina, where are you? I'm outside your office. I'll be right there, honey.
A few minutes later, Dad ran out of his office and embraced me.
I'm so happy to see you. How about I take the day off and we go to your favorite restaurant? I want you to tell me everything that happened.
At the restaurant, I told Dad how Melissa was nice at first, but then she changed.
I'm not surprised. That sounds just like her.
Why did she leave us for all those years?
I lost my job when you were just a few months old. Melissa withdrew all her savings and left me to look after you alone.
I was shocked to hear that my own mother abandoned me just because she didn't want to be poor. As we ate, the restaurant door swung open and in walked Melissa, followed by Jamie? How did you find me? I put a tracker in all your shoes. You're crazy! And why are you with Jamie? Well, I thought we could all have a family reunion. You see, Jamie is my son too. What? Before I married your dad, I was married to Jamie's dad, but I left when Jamie was a baby. Same as you left me. So what if I left both of you? Your fathers were poor, but I'm rich now and you can come live with me as brother and sister. I was going to be sick. All this time I'd been crushing on my brother. I took my shoes off and threw them at Melissa. You can keep those and everything else you bought. When Jamie saw what I'd done, he took off his new Rolex and threw it at Melissa. You can keep that too. I'm sure you put a tracker on it. Jamie ran out of the restaurant, clearly upset. I wanted to run after him, but Dad stopped me.
Let him go, honey. He needs time to deal with the shock of what's just happened. Now, let's go home. You've had a long day.
Dad took my hand and we left Melissa in the restaurant. A few days later, I bumped into Jamie at school. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. His hair was a mess and he kept rubbing his eyes. I reached out to remove some dirt from his hair, but loud laughter startled me.
Oh my god, did you just kiss your brother? That's like so ew!
No, she didn't. And how did you find out that Nina is my sister?
I was at the restaurant. I heard everything.
Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse.
Wait until I tell everyone what kind of freaks you both are.
You'll do no such thing. We turned to see Melissa standing behind us.
And how will you stop me? With this.
Melissa held out an old photo of Jenny for us to see.
Oh my god, your nose!
Jenny's nose in the photo was so huge it covered half her face. Give that to me! Where did you even get it? Funny story. I met someone special recently. His name is Dr. Sloan. Ring a bell? The color drained from Jenny's face.
That's my plastic surgeon! But he had no right sharing this photo with you! I'll sue him!
I stole the photo.
No, you stay away from Jamie and Nina, or I'll plaster your fat nose all over school! Fine!
Jenny walked away defeated. Thanks for that, but this doesn't change anything. I know. Actually, I'm here to say goodbye. I'm going on a year-long cruise with Dr. Sloan. I hope that one day you'll both forgive me. Maybe, but it'll take time. I understand. She hugged us briefly and left. Suddenly, Jamie burst out laughing.
Oh my god, did you see that nose?
Jamie, be nice. We both walked to class laughing. Having a brother wasn't so bad after all. And the end. Hi, I'm Melody, and I live in LA. Please like and subscribe. When I was born, rumor has it that my dad took one look at me and said I was an alien. You see, I was born with scales like a fish covering my whole body.
Oh my god! Those scales! Please take her! I can't!
The nurse was so frightened by my skin that she fainted while holding me. Mom grabbed me from her just in time, or else she'd have dropped me. From that day onwards, my dad avoided being in contact with me, and as I grew older, his disgust for my skin condition worsened. One time, he got a promotion at work, and he came home more excited than I had ever seen him. As soon as he saw Mom, he ran to her and hugged her tightly. Excited, I also ran and joined in on the hug, but my dad shook me off so hard that I fell flat on my face.
I told you not to get close to me!
She's just a child! How can you be so ruthless to your own child?
Shh, come here, my little mermaid. You're okay.
Mom loved me very much, and she had tried for so many years to show Dad that I was harmless, but never succeeded. When she took me to kindergarten, the other kids cried and cowered in the corner, so I had to be withdrawn from school. And my mom homeschooled me. Unfortunately, she got very sick and passed away when I was 8 years old, leaving me all alone with my dad, who wouldn't even look at me. Barely a year later, Dad married this woman named Paula, and she and her daughter, Charlotte, moved in with us immediately. The first time Charlotte and I met, I thought she would run away, but she looked more amazed than shocked.
You look like a real-life mermaid. I bet many people tell you that.
Well, I haven't met many people.
And it shall remain that way. You're not leaving this house. Ever.
But, Mr. Hopkins, how will Melody go to school?
Dad ignored Charlotte's question. Instead, he turned towards her and his stern face transformed into a huge smile.
Call me Dad, please. We're family now.
Unbelievable! Clearly, Charlotte was the daughter Dad had always wanted. And if it wasn't already obvious he preferred her to me, he gave her my room. And where did I sleep? The basement. The only company I had was Charlotte, who sneaked into my room every night to hang out with me and bring me treats, books, and anything else I needed. You know, you could get into trouble with Dad if he finds you come here.
I know that.
And you're not worried that you'll
catch something?
We laughed as she combed my hair.
I can't believe Dad said that. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Now can we listen to some music? Every night, Charlotte would put on some music and we'd dance and sing along. Sometimes, I imagined myself performing in front of an audience.
You have a great voice, Melody. You will become a star one day.
Huh! What a joke! I can't even show my face in public. So how could I become a star?
TikTok. Duh!
What's that?
Oh my god, you've never heard of TikTok?
Did you forget that I live in a basement? Charlotte looked so sad.
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to sound so insensitive.
I burst out laughing and she hit me with a pillow. Come on, I have a TV, remember? Of course I know what TikTok is. Anyway, you think I'd be famous on TikTok?
Definitely! All we have to do is create an account and then post videos of you singing.
But everyone will see me.
Not if you don't want them to. You can just wear a mask and sing.
Charlotte, that's brilliant!
Let's do it! Yay! I even have the perfect name for the account. How does Masked Melody sound?
Charlotte was right. It was perfect. The following night, she came to the basement with a bedazzled mask that covered my whole face. It was the happiest I'd ever been in a long, long time. For the next couple of weeks, I sang my heart out as Charlotte recorded and posted dozens of videos to the Masked Melody TikTok account. The account kept growing, and I was shocked at the number of song requests I got from my fans. That's right, I had over 1 million fans! One night, Charlotte and I were in the middle of our recording sessions when Dad burst in. Charlotte was so startled that she knocked over the phone stand and the phone fell. Dad picked it up, and we knew we were in trouble. Dad had not been in my room for years, and the look on his face told me that he wasn't here to hug and make up.
Is this what you've been up to this whole time?
Dad, I can explain. Melody has a really beautiful voice and...
I don't want to hear it! Take the account down immediately!
But...
Do as I say, Charlotte, and stay out of the basement! To your room! Now!
I'm so sorry, Mel. And just like that, I lost my only source of happiness. I was back to being lonely, and I missed Charlotte very much. And my fans too, to be honest. After a few nights, I couldn't take it anymore. And so I took matters into my own hands and sneaked into Charlotte's room. Bad idea. Charlotte let out a scream and attacked me with a hairbrush.
Shh, it's me. Mel, we almost killed you.
With a hairbrush? I doubt it. What are you doing here? Could you open another TikTok account for me? Pretty please? She looked at me and hesitated. Pretty please? Even I knew she couldn't resist my charm. She laughed and finally grabbed her phone. Here, let me show you how to create one and how to post so you can do it for yourself. You can use my spare phone. Why? Can't you do it with me? I would love to, but your dad threatened to kick Mom and I out if I kept helping you. After Charlotte walked me through it, I hugged her, took her spare phone, and went back to my room. Just like my deleted account, the new one gained popularity quickly. Fans were excited and they asked me to cover songs by famous artists, including my favorite singer, Jonas. Jonas was every teen girl's dream, and his account had over 100 million followers. Doing a cover for his song kept me up all night. I kept deleting my recordings, but finally, I made a perfect one and posted it. Little did I know that it had just changed my life for good. I woke up to thousands of notifications. Before I could check them, Charlotte burst in looking breathless like she had ran here. Are you crazy? You can't be here. And don't you have school? Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god! Charlotte, breathe! What happened? Jonas commented on your video! Now it was my turn to stop breathing. What? See? Charlotte shoved her phone in my face, and sure enough, there was a comment from him saying he'd like to see me audition for an upcoming talent show he was working on. The show was a big deal, and I couldn't believe he thought I was good enough to be on it. What do I do? Reply and tell him you'll audition. I can't. I knew that if I agreed to do it, it would mean that I'd have to show my face to the public. All I could think about was how fast I would lose my fans if they saw the face behind the voice. Days later, I still hadn't responded to Jonas, so you can imagine my shock when he posted that he had met Masked Melody, and she had just agreed to audition for the latest show. He posted a photo posing with Masked Melody, but she was not facing the camera. Of course, it wasn't me in the picture, but I'd recognize that girl anywhere. It was Charlotte! Charlotte admitted that she met Jonas and pretended to be me, but insisted that she did it to help me.
I told Jonas that I have severe stage fright and will only audition if they allow me to sing with a full mask on and costume. And he agreed that since I am Masked Melody, maintaining the mystery of my real identity will be good for the show.
I couldn't believe it! They will really let me perform with a mask on?
Yes, and costume. What do you think of a mermaid costume? You do look like a mermaid after all.
Charlotte was a genius! We spent several nights designing the perfect mermaid costume, and Charlotte had tailored it just as we had designed it. I had to make sure I was perfect for the audition as well, so I practiced tirelessly day and night. Everything was perfect until one night. My basement door burst open, and instead of Charlotte, her mother Paula was standing there. What was she doing here? Melody, your father and I are getting separated. What? I thought they were happy. Apparently not. Paula explained that she could not be with him anymore and was leaving him for good. But who will I stay here with? You guys are the only ones who actually care about me. Charlotte told me everything you two are planning, and I'm so happy for you and want to help, but I can only do that if you leave with us tonight. Yes! I was so done with that basement. Also, the thought of living alone with my dad made me cringe. I immediately started packing, and Paula helped too. A few minutes later, we snuck out, and I was surprised to see a trailer house parked around the corner. Charlotte was already inside, looking so excited.
Look what I got from the costume shop today!
She held my mermaid costume, and I was in awe. Oh my god, it's so beautiful! How did you even afford to pay for that? It's the least we can do for you. Thanks so much, both of you. Where are we going? I own some property outside of town.
We'll park at the trailer house there as we wait for the audition and decide what to do next.
For the first time in my life, I was outside and free to enjoy the fresh air without worrying about who would see me or what they would say. Paula's property turned out to be an open field with lots of grass. I spent hours outside every night stargazing and enjoying the cold breeze. I worried constantly if my dad was worried about me or if he would even look for me. How would he react if he saw me outside? Or if he found out I was going to an audition? When audition day finally came, Paula hired a car and drove me to the auditions. My mermaid costume was a perfect fit. And when I finally walked on stage, the crowd went wild. I had never received that much attention in my life, and I was freaking out. Just then, I saw Charlotte in the crowd and she gave me a thumbs up. As someone in the crowd shouted, "Nice costume!" I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and sang like my life depended on it. And it did. By the time I was done, the crowd was on their feet clapping, cheering, and giving me a standing ovation. It was magical, and I couldn't believe I'd done it. Within an hour, my TikTok account had gained 100,000 more followers. As soon as I left the stage, I rushed to the car trying to get away from the crowd, like Cinderella running away from the prince before the clock struck midnight. By the side of the car, I was surprised to find Jonas waiting for me with a bouquet of flowers. That performance was perfect, Melody, and this costume made it even better. Before I could even say anything, he hugged me and I felt butterflies. Just then, I spotted Charlotte, but she saw Jonas and disappeared into the crowd. Phew! If Jonas saw her, he would realize he had met a fake Melody, and that would be the end of my career. The competition was going well, and I made it to the top of each round. One day, after an exceptional performance, Jonas waited outside for me and asked me out on a date in front of eager fans. Say yes! Say yes! Okay, sure. Fans went wild, and the story broke out in the tabloids minutes later. But I was a little sad. Of course, it was Charlotte who'd be going on the date. I wasn't jealous or anything. Okay, maybe a little. Jonas showed up at the trailer at exactly 7 p.m. Charlotte had spent all afternoon getting ready, and she looked stunning. When she walked out, Jonas took her hand and opened the car door for her. I watched them drive off, and a tear fell down my cheek. When they came back hours later, my heart sank as I watched Jonas kiss Charlotte. I wanted it to be me kissing Jonas so badly. As time went by, Charlotte and Jonas grew closer, and she would not shut up about him. She told me details of every date, and with every date they went to, I became more resentful. One day, I couldn't take it any longer, and I just blew up all that pent-up anger at Charlotte. He doesn't even like you! He's only with you because he thinks you're masked Melody!
That's not fair! I am literally doing this for you!
How's kissing the guy I like doing it for me?
Well, it's not my fault you're not brave enough to show him the real you, Melody!
The fight got really ugly, and Charlotte and I didn't talk to each other for a few days. On the final day of the talent show, I was almost certain I would win before I even got around to singing. Sure enough, I gave a show-stopping performance, and I won!
Ladies and gentlemen, your winner for the $1 million prize money and 12-month recording contract with Jonas record label, Masked Melody!
My dream had finally come true! I wanted to hug Charlotte, but she and I were still not talking, so I stood on the stage alone, still in my costume and mask. I was about to begin my acceptance speech when the crowd started chanting something that freaked me out.
Mask off! Take it off! Take it off!
Well, are you going to give your fans what they've wanted all season?
I'm sorry. I couldn't do it. I bolted and disappeared into my dressing room backstage.
Melody, wait!
Charlotte ran in after me and hugged me. You don't need to do it if you're not ready, but someone has to go out there. Can I? I nodded hesitantly, and she waited for a few minutes, then stepped onto the stage as the crowd cheered at her. I switched on the TV in the room and watched Charlotte smile and wave to the crowd. How long was I going to hide? I needed to show my real self. I took off my mask and costume and put on a dress that showed a lot of my skin. When I walked onto the stage, The whole place went silent, apart from a few gasps and whispers. All I could hear was my heart beating. When Charlotte spotted me, she smiled and handed me the mic.
Sing, Mel. Do what you do best.
And I did just that. I closed my eyes and ignored some of the horrified looks in the crowd. By the time I was done, everyone looked confused, and no one clapped or made a sound for a while. Just then, someone in the audience broke the silence as he stood up and started clapping. I squinted my eyes to see who it was, but I couldn't believe my eyes. Dad? After him, everyone else followed suit, and I got the longest standing ovation of my life.
How's that for a twist? Ladies and gentlemen, the actual Masked Melody!
The cheers were deafening. I was swept off my feet literally by a pair of hands that turned out to be my dad. Melody, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. I only wanted to protect you. But you were terrible to me and hurt me badly. Please forgive me. I will be a better father from now on. I need time to think about it. He begged me to go back home with him, but I couldn't trust him anymore. I couldn't help but feel that he only apologized to me because I was famous now. I am happy with Paula and Charlotte. Even though he looked hurt, he respected my decision and left promising to keep in touch. So, you're Melody. I turned to see a confused Jonas eyeing me curiously. Yes, and you already know my stepsister, Charlotte. I'm sorry we lied. Oh, it's okay. You have no idea how famous we're about to get. He pointed to a bunch of reporters taking photos and fighting to interview us. Charlotte was loving every minute of it, and so was I. The end. Hi, my name is Bridget, and I am from New York. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. When I was born, my dad used to take me to the aquarium all the time because that's where he worked as a marine biologist. Hanging out in Dad's aquarium made me fall in love with all the animals. And one day when I was around 7 years old, my dad took me into the water to meet Tulip. She was a dolphin, and she touched my nose with her long mouth.
Dad, I think she likes me.
I think so too, sweetie.
You know, when I grow up, I want to be just like you.
I loved my dad so much. I also had a great mom too, but she was always out working since she was a top lawyer in the country. My life was perfect until I came home from school one day and found my mom crying. What's wrong, Mom?
Bridget, I don't think your dad is coming back.
What do you mean he's not coming back?
His job called and they sent out some lifeguards to search for research crew they sent out at sea, and they can't find him.
Mom broke down again, and I wanted to comfort her, but I was also breaking down, so I ran to my room and turned on my rock music up loud. This was my way of ignoring the facts. 2 years went by, and my dad still never returned, and I became the geek who covered her face with her hair and walked around with a hoodie and books. And then, in my senior year, the school wanted to take us on a 1-week trip to the Atlantic Ocean, but my mom refused to let me go.
I'm sorry, Bridget. I already lost your father to the ocean, and I'm not losing you too.
But Mom, this is my opportunity to explore the best sea creatures in the world. Mom stood her ground and stuck to her decision. But when I told my biology teacher, Mrs. Jam, she immediately came to my house since I was her top student and she adored me to bits.
Hi, ma'am. I came to speak to you about Bridget. If it's about that trip to the Atlantic Ocean, my answer is no.
Mrs. Jam was a very persistent person, and somehow she managed to convince my mom. I was so excited! The last time I felt this happy was when Dad took me camping.
Please stay safe.
I will, Mom. She hugged me tightly and almost didn't let go. The ship that we sailed on was huge, and on the first night, the kids in my school organized a party on the boat. But I didn't have many friends, so I sat by myself next to the edge of the ship, reading a book, until suddenly I spotted a dolphin. Hey there, little guy. I leaned over to touch him, and then all of a sudden I toppled over, almost falling into the sea, until the hottest guy in school caught me and pulled me up. His name was Shane, and this was my first time being this close to him.
Wow. What were you doing at the edge of the boat?
I saw a dolphin that I couldn't miss.
Haha, okay, that's cool. Just don't fall in again unless you want to be swimming with the dolphins tonight. And how come you're out here alone when everybody is having a good time at the party?
I just wanted some fresh air. A gush of breeze lifted my hair from my face.
Wow, you must be a Vogue model.
My face turned red, blushing at what he said. And then this girl, Jessica, approached us. She was one of the popular cheerleading girls at school with a massive attitude.
There you are. I've been looking everywhere for you.
She clung on to Shane and smirked at me.
What are you doing with her?
He wanted to talk to me. Do you have a problem with that?
Well, yeah. He is my boyfriend.
Well, maybe you should write your name on his forehead then. That way we will all know that he belongs to you. Shane looked at me, speechless. I was very quiet in school, but not stupid. When the snobby girls gave me an attitude, I gave it right back. After that scene, the teachers called it a timeout, which meant we all had to go to bed. And while we were fast asleep, there was a sudden bang, and then screaming.
Everyone, we need to get off the ship. The ship is sinking.
When I put my feet on the floor, there was already a puddle of water. I ran with all the other kids and we got onto a lifeboat and rowed the whole night until we came to an isolated island.
Oh my gosh, my hair is so damaged.
Jessica and her crew of cheerleaders looked like recycled Barbie dolls without their makeup. And then Shane suddenly appeared in front of me.
You still look the same. I guess natural beauty pays off in the end.
Shane, come here. I need you.
Jessica was such a control freak. She wanted Shane to hug her because she felt emotional, and him just popping up and randomly calling me beautiful was also a little strange, but I wasn't complaining. I looked up at the sky and saw that the clouds were heavy, and I remembered my dad showing me how to build shelter with banana leaves and sticks. And when I started gathering the sticks and leaves together, Jessica started mocking me.
What on earth are you doing?
Building shelter. Do you want to help?
I would never do something so degrading like that, because I'm a lady and ladies like me could never do a maid's job.
So we're stuck out here in the middle of nowhere, and all you can think of is your lady self. I guess you're not only selfish, but also very dumb.
Ha! How dare you? It's not like we're going to stay here forever. Oh wait, I forgot you finally made it home, where you can be all alone and live amongst the sea creatures. You're such a geek.
All her friends laughed. Then Mrs. Jam gave me a hand and Shane joined in.
This is actually a bright idea because it looks like a storm is caving in.
After we built the shelter, it didn't take long for it to start pouring down, and Jessica and her minions ran to the shelter. Wow! Looks like my geeky little shelter is now useful! Jessica smirked at me. Then she stood next to Shane, pulled him closer to her, and kissed him madly. A part of me did feel jealous, which I didn't understand since she was her boyfriend after all. Later that night, as we fell asleep, I had this strange dream about my dad. And then suddenly, I woke up and heard someone shouting in the woods. I bravely got up to see what it was, and then I screamed when someone touched my shoulder. Ah! Oh my gosh, Shane! What are you doing here?
I saw you get up. What are you doing out here?
I heard someone shouting. Did you hear that?
Yes, now be quiet.
We walked further into the woods until we reached a cave. We didn't have any torches, so we didn't go in. But when we turned around to go back, we were surrounded by some strange people who carried spears and dressed in animal fur. Oh my gosh! Please don't hurt us! They poked us lightly with their spear and then took us to their campsite where we had to bow down before their chief. The chief pointed at me and then he asked his people to smell my hands as if they were about to eat me up. And then they tied me to a pole and started a fire. My heart pounded with so much fear. No, please! I taste like Marmite! Please don't eat me! Ah! Just as they were about to set fire to the pole, a man appeared.
Stop!
His face was covered with a beard, but I noticed his eyes. They were just like mine. Dad?
Bridget!
He cut me loose and hugged me tightly. Dad! I thought you were dead! We hugged each other, crying and smiling and feeling so overwhelmed. The strange people of the forest adored him because he saved them from pirates once, and ever since, they took care of him. How come you never came back?
I tried, but there's no way out of here. We're stuck here.
The strange people also let Shane go, and we slept in their campsite for a night. The next day, before we could go back to the rest of the kids, I woke up early in the morning to find a spot to pee. While searching for a spot not too far from the campsite, I suddenly came across a ship beached on shore. It was abandoned, so I went inside to check it out. Wow, we could actually get back home with this. While talking to myself, I felt an ice-cold sword on my cheek.
Hi there, little girl.
When I turned around, a tall, dirty man with a pirate hat stood before me, and then 3 other men joined him. I come in peace? As they tied me up, I wondered if maybe these pirates were just like the ones we watched on TV, so I tried my luck. If you let us use your ship, I can show you where the treasure is. They looked at each other, and then the captain came closer to me with his smelly breath.
Aye.
What does I mean?
Show us the treasure.
Only if you allow me and my schoolmates, plus my dad, to board this ship. They grouped together to discuss, and then they agreed. But when I took them to the campsite where my dad and Shane was, the pirates suddenly changed their minds when they saw my dad.
If that man is your dad, then no.
Dad, what did you do to them?
I just kind of exploded their camp with a little bit of dynamite.
Oh my gosh, Dad, that's dangerous!
Annabelle, are you sure about this? These pirates are not to be trusted. They've taken a lot from the people of the forest.
It's our only way to get back home. I got Mrs. Jam to talk to the Captain Pirate, and once again she worked her charm, and we all boarded their ship and sailed off to find their treasure. As I sat alone on the deck, Shane came and sat next to me.
If it wasn't for you, we'd all probably be stuck on that island, turning into savages.
Yeah, what can I say? I got it from my dad. I'm so happy I finally found him. Jessica then appeared in front of us.
Why is it every time I look for you, you're always with her?
Jessica, wait for me inside. I'll be there soon.
She rolled her eyes and stormed back inside. Why do you let her control you so much?
I don't know. I guess because she's so popular and I just got sucked into being that cool guy who gets the hot girl thing.
And do you like that?
No, if I could create my own school, I'd rather have more girls like you around.
He always had a way with words. 2 days passed, and we were still sailing. And then one day, as I stood up on the top of the ship, looking through binoculars, the Captain Pirates and all his mates surrounded me.
Where is our treasure?
We still need to get there.
Stop lying or else we will throw your dad in the ocean.
I didn't know what else to come up with, since there was no real treasure. And then to show me that they were serious, they pushed my dad into the ocean and I ran screaming, "Dad!" When I looked down, there was a shark, and then I jumped. Since my dad and I were really great swimmers, we swam underwater and stayed really still. This was something my dad taught me about sharks. They won't come near you if you remain still. After the shark swam away, Shane let down a rope and we climbed back up, but the pirates were not too happy. Okay, your treasure is in New York. Once we get there, I'll show you exactly where it is. The pirates gave us a chance, and when we eventually reached home, the kids screamed for joy and thanked me.
Bridget, you saved us.
Okay, enough of your happy screaming. We still want our treasure.
When they pointed their swords at me, the security at the harbor saw this and came to our rescue. The pirates were arrested and we were all safe. When Shane came to talk to me again, Jessica immediately pulled him away. But this time, he pushed her away.
I'm breaking up with you, Jessica.
What? You can't do that. Every boy in the school wants to date me.
No, we don't.
A few boys walked past her and laughed at her hair, now that she looked like she was electrocuted. Jessica screamed her lungs out, angry at Shane for breaking up with her, and stormed off. Shane turned and smiled at me.
I guess I'll see you at school.
Yeah, I felt butterflies in my stomach after he left, and then my dad touched my shoulder.
Are you ready to go home?
Yes, I can't wait. When we walked into our house, Mom cried and ran into Dad's arms.
Oh, how are you here?
Bridget saved me.
We all had a big family hug, and later that evening, while we were eating dinner, there was a knock on the door. Dad opened it and then said it was for me. When I went to see who it was Shane.
Hey,
Hey,
I was wondering if you would go to prom with me.
and you couldn't wait till tomorrow to tell me this?
No.
He looked so cute when he was shy, and this time I pulled him closer and kissed him. Of course I'll be your date. Can you believe that my sister and I have been fighting over the crown of this kingdom for years? Hi, I'm Natalie. Please like and subscribe. My twin sister Valerie and I grew up in a huge castle by a silent river. My about 1,000 years ago, my ancestors built this kingdom from scratch, and now our dad is the king. Everyone used to tell us that we were very pretty. Even though Valerie and I were one of those twins that didn't resemble each other, Dad treated us equally from day one. I had long, dark brown hair, and she had short blonde hair, but our eyes were both blue. We grew up without a mom. She went to heaven 2 years after our birth. I was very little, but I remember Dad crying for nights and nights. One day, when we were 10 years old, Dad came home with 2 big chests full of gold. They both contained the same amount of gold.
Here, my little rabbits. These are for you, for when you grow up to invest them in your dreams.
There is 100 kilograms of pure gold from the mountains where we are coming from for each of you. It was so shiny and beautiful. Not for Valerie, apparently, because she started complaining.
Why should Natalie take the same amount as me?
Because you are both sisters and twins. You deserve to be equal.
We are not equal. I am more beautiful and smarter than her.
You two should stick together. There will come a day when you will have to join forces and stick together instead of being divided. If our enemies find out that you two don't get along, it will be very easy for them to take the castle from your hands. Got it, Dad?
Got it, Dad?
But it turns out this was just a test from Dad.
What you see is not real gold. It's just cheap metal covered with yellow shiny paint. You both failed to cooperate. And I can tell you, you are not ready to have this much power in your hands.
See? You ruined it! Just because you can't accept the truth! Now I have no gold because you can't keep your mouth shut!
Me? You ruined it! She stared at me in anger for a few seconds, then suddenly jumped at me, pulling my hair. It was a big fight. Years passed, and Valerie and I grew even more distant. Once, when we were 15, a crazy winter was going on. Outside, there was a snowstorm and everything was frozen. Because of that, even we, the royal family, were short on food because all the animals had gone to warmer areas and all the vegetables were buried under snow at the moment. One night, Dad, Valerie, and I were seated at the dinner table, waiting for the butlers to serve us food. But when the servant came, he only brought 2 baked potatoes. I was shocked.
Is this a joke? You're fired!
Valerie, sweetheart, it's not his fault. That's all that's left. I shared every last piece of food with everyone in the kingdom.
Why would you do that? They are poor creatures. We are rich, and we are the royal family. We deserve all of it.
You don't even deserve those 2 potatoes.
You shut up! You're not eating. These 2 potatoes are just for Dad and me.
That's okay, honey. I won't eat. You 2 can eat them. Our scientist said that soon it will be sunny again.
Then I'm eating both.
And she did! She devoured both of them in a second. What a jerk! I stood up crying and left the dinner room with an empty stomach, went to my room, and cried all night. The morning after, when I woke up, I couldn't believe my eyes. I looked out the window, and it was sunny! I saw Dad leaving together with the hunters and their horses and retrievers to go and provide food for the castle. He was such an inspiring figure to me. One day, I wanted to be queen just so I could care for our kingdom the way he did. I'm sure Mom would have been proud. I got dressed, went downstairs, and saw Valerie in front of the fireplace. What are you doing up this early?
That's none of your business. But since you look desperate, I will tell you. Dad promised me that when he comes back from hunting, he would bring a surprise just for me, and he would bring you nothing.
Dad said that? I looked at the butler for approval. He rolled his eyes but didn't say anything. I smiled at him and told Valerie, "Well, I hope you enjoy what he brings you. Meanwhile, would you care to go for a walk in the garden with me? The snow has melted and the path is clear."
Are you out of your mind? It's still cold.
As I headed to the door, Valerie continued,
But you can stay here with me. I will act like I don't mind.
I stopped, turned to her, smiled, and went to sit next to her. We were both looking at the fire. Why are you like you are? Why do you want everything for yourself? I am your sister.
I know, but one day I will be the queen. I have to prepare myself now.
What makes you think that? We are twins. I could be queen too.
I can't believe you. Haven't I told you many times that I am smarter and more beautiful than you?
I looked at her in anger, but luckily she smiled, because otherwise I would have jumped on her. We stayed in front of the fireplace for hours and hours next to each other. For the first time in my life, I was feeling like I did have a sister. We fell asleep and woke up when we heard the horses approach the castle.
Dad is here! Now watch the surprise that he has for me and cry!
When the door of the castle opened, I did cry, both of us. 5 hunters were holding the gigantic and strong body of Dad. We ran on him, but he wasn't breathing and was messed up. His face was full of scars.
Dad! Dad! What happened?
Milady,
We were in the woods and we saw a deer. We always shoot from a distance, but His Majesty had run out of arrows, so approached the deer from a close range with a knife.
What? The deer did this to him!
No, my lady. A bear that had seen the same deer and wanted her for himself.
My world fell apart. I was having trouble breathing and I passed out. When I woke up, I was in a bed and 3 people were over me, but none of them were Valerie. What happened to Valerie? Where is she? How is she?
Don't worry, my lady. She is fine in her bedroom.
I didn't leave the room until Dad's funeral. Then, after a week, when I woke up one morning and went downstairs, I was shocked by what I saw. Valerie was wearing the Queen's crown and was going around the castle giving orders to everyone. I went to her in the garden.
Is that the way to cut a flower? You idiot! Go home! You're fired!
No, stay here. Excuse me, what do you think you're doing?
No, go! What does it look like I'm doing? I've taken over the castle. I am the queen now, and it's about time someone put in some order in this kingdom, because Dad had become too lenient in his reign. This kingdom didn't deserve him. He was too kind. But now, I am in charge.
No, you're not! Take off the crown!
No thanks.
Take off the crown immediately! First of all, there should be a protocol and ceremony to name the new queen.
Been there, done that, while you were asleep.
It doesn't count! And second, it hasn't even been a week since Dad passed. And all you can think about is this stupid crown!
If it's stupid, why do you want it then? Guards! She insulted a royal object. Take her!
But of course, the guards didn't move because they hadn't seen the ceremony yet and didn't recognize Valerie as queen. I couldn't care less about being the queen at the moment, but I also couldn't stand being ruled by a brat like Valerie. One day, 6 months later, Valerie was arguing with the governor of the castle who had been taking care of internal affairs forever. Dad trusted him blindly, and so did I. What's going on here?
Milady, nothing important enough to bother you.
It's all because of you! If you would just give up your stupid ambition of wanting to be the queen, I'd be the queen by now, and the kingdom would be fine. But thanks to you, we are facing economical issues now, and the governor here is making insane suggestions.
I would like to hear his suggestion.
Milady, our kingdom is part of the 7 kingdoms of the northern lands. Your ancestors have signed an agreement that if any of these kingdoms would be left without a king or queen for more than 3 months, we have to inform them to send us the diplomat who would evaluate the best person that should take over.
You knew about this and you didn't say anything? Valerie turned red and left the room. I asked the governor to inform the Congress of the 7 kingdoms to send us the delegate. 1 month later, the delegate arrived. His name was Charles, and he was so handsome. But most importantly, he was a real gentleman. My sister and I were waiting for him in the main hall, and he bowed down and kissed our hands. OMG! I had a crush on him already, but I had to stop myself from doing anything stupid because he was here to judge who the future queen would be. My ladies, you know why I'm here. Therefore, I would like to start by giving you some tasks. First of all, I want to see how you manage tough situations.
Well, if we go together to the main hall, I can show you how I manage tough situations.
Seriously, now was not the time to flirt! My lady, it's best if the tasks are performed in the presence of your sister and the governor. I am required to have testimonies. The first situation, imagine that you are the queen.
I don't have to imagine. I am the queen.
Shut up! Charles looked at me in a very weird way and I just realized I'd done a stupid thing. Okay, I think I have the answer to how you manage things. No, please! That's okay, my lady. There are 2 more tasks. What would you do to maintain internal relationships with other kingdoms and avoid wars?
Avoid wars? That's ridiculous. Why would we avoid wars? We are the strongest kingdom in the world, and we can win over anyone and anything.
Okay, I think I got this answer as well. I started to stress out. What if Valerie won the last task? That would be a disaster. Last question before I conclude. What would you do if the people were experiencing food shortages? No one of us answered straight away, but I knew exactly what the answer was. I would go myself to hunt and provide food for our people until my last breath, just like my father did. Valerie was still thinking. What was there to think about? The answer was obvious.
Or at least for me, because she surprised me.
I would send every man for hunting, but I would stay in the castle in case something happens.
What a jerk! I immediately regretted saying that in front of Charles, but he laughed at my reaction. Well, one of you gave the right answer, which defines the future queen. She is Valerie! What? How could that moron have given the right answer? Turns out, no matter how noble my answer was, there was a protocol that said the queen or king had to stay safe as possible because otherwise the kingdom would turn into chaos. That's why we were in this situation now. Valerie had chosen to stay inside, thus aligning with the requirements of a queen. I started crying and went upstairs when I bumped into the governor. I hugged him as if he were my dad. Milady, you shouldn't cry. But she became the queen. She will make my life miserable from now on. No, she won't. He smiled at me and showed me a bunch of papers. Then he went downstairs to Charles and Valerie and handed the papers to them.
What's this trash?
This trash, milady, is what your father assigned. While I was looking for the papers to sign for the new queen, I found this in his drawers. In these papers is written the adoption permission from your parents to the late king. Valerie, you cannot be queen. You do not have royal blood. What? I couldn't believe it! Valerie was adopted?
This can't be true! We're twins!
You were the daughter of the ex-queen's sister, who unfortunately has also passed away in a glorious battle, and she fought bravely, together with your father. Therefore, Miss Natalie has the legal right to become queen. Well, case closed. I'm heading back home. Wait! He stopped, and I went to find Valerie. She was crying. Valerie, please don't cry.
But I am adopted! Are you happy now?
I am because I still love you the same way, which means that for me it doesn't matter who your parents are. You will always be my sister. Valerie raised her head and looked at me for a moment, then burst into tears. She hugged me as she'd never done before, and I knew this time she meant it. We will rule together. I will take every piece of advice that you will give me. I promise. In this case, my business is over here. Please, stay a little longer. We need your help. You seem to know everything about ruling a kingdom. And it was true. Charles did know everything about it. He promised to stay with us until I'd be completely ready to rule the kingdom. 5 months later, Charles and I were traveling in a horse-drawn carriage when he started talking to me sweetly. My lady, no matter how inappropriate this might seem, I cannot keep for myself anymore the fact that I am in love with you. He was so cute. His eyes were shining when he said that. I couldn't say a word at that moment. Stop the carriage! Are you going to leave me here? I smiled and asked him to come out of the carriage with me. When we went out, the most beautiful scenery opened in front of us. We were riding along a massive canyon and it was almost sunset. Everything was beautiful and perfect. I missed Dad for a moment, but I believe Charles was sent to me from Dad to protect me, to take care of me, just like Dad used to. I turned to Charles and hugged him. Then I looked at him right in his beautiful eyes. I love you too. We kissed for the first time, and it was magical.
Hi, my name's Crystal. Please like and subscribe. Growing up, I didn't have many friends. No one so much as looked at me, let alone speak to me. Well, except for Allie, my best friend, and my only friend. The first time Allie and I met was when we were 5 years old.
Hey! Give that back! Dance for me first!
Embarrassed, I stood up and began to dance a little. But then suddenly, this other girl barged in and shoved the kid away. She grabbed my toy and handed it back to me. I was in awe.
Here you go!
Thanks! We've been best friends ever since. I was used to never getting attention, until the day that changed the rest of my life forever. Allie and I were sitting at our usual spot in the cafeteria when suddenly there was a bunch of commotion outside. Everyone was shouting and running out into the field. Let's go check it out. We ran outside to find a giant banner flying across the sky, pulled by a plane. It said, "Bow to your new king, King Dante." What's going on? Suddenly, a figure leaped out of the plane and fell straight towards us.
Ah! He's gonna die!
But then the skydiver yanked on his bag and a parachute opened up. The crowd gasped and clapped until finally he arrived in front of us. The guy pulled off his mask, and I knew everyone was thinking the same thing. He was so handsome. Hello, commoners! I am King Dante. I will be moving to this school and I can't wait to rule this place.
Seriously, who was this guy?
Suddenly, Dante turned his head and looked right at me.
Is something funny?
No, nothing.
I couldn't hold it in.
Crystal! Dante walked towards us slowly.
What's your name?
Crystal?
Listen here, Crystal. I don't have time to deal with peasants like you.
The smile slipped off from my face. What did you just call me?
You heard me. Now bow down.
I beg your pardon?
Granted.
What? Crystal, come on, just do it. And you can't believe what she did. She actually went down onto her knees and bowed to him. Nuh-uh. I wasn't having any of that.
Go on, Crystal. Follow your friend. Unlike you, she's got a brain.
Crystal, hurry!
Come on, sweetie, just...
I don't know what came over me. 1 second my arm was by my side, and the next second it had pulled back and swung around with enormous speed, punching Dante right in his snobby face. Ow! The crowd gasped. A teacher appeared.
Crystal! Detention! Now!
I was too stunned to move. What was that? Later in the principal's office, Principal Morgan was really scolding me.
This is so unlike you, Crystal. You're usually very quiet and mellow. What happened?
I agree. He must have done something horrible to cause such a reaction.
What did he do, sweetie?
He asked me to bow to him. Okay, while that is bad, that does not justify punching him.
I'm sorry, Crystal, but I'm going to have to expel you.
What? Dante is the son of the mayor of this town. I have to set a precedent.
But...
Principal Morgan stood up and approached me.
I'll be taking your...
And suddenly a tingling sensation erupted across my skin. And just like before, my limbs moved of their own accord and swiped Principal Morgan off her feet. She came crashing down.
Crystal! She's definitely expelled now!
Something was wrong with me. Mom agreed and took me to the hospital that evening. And after running several tests, the doctors came to a dark conclusion.
She has a rare condition called ninja-loxia.
What does that mean?
It's a rare condition that basically turns her into a ninja whenever she feels threatened. I advise you to learn how to control it so you don't seriously hurt someone.
Is there nothing else we can do?
I'm afraid not.
Luckily, Mom was able to give Principal Morgan the doctor's report so I could still stay at school. But the news of my condition had left me shocked. I didn't want to hurt anyone. The next day at school, we were in the cafeteria again when I saw Dante walk in. He had a band-aid on the side of his face where I had punched him. I'm gonna go apologize to him.
No, don't! He doesn't deserve it. He's a jerk.
Maybe, but I should still apologize. I managed to escape Allie's grasps and walk up to Dante. He had 2 other guys beside him. It looked like he'd managed to get a group of sheep already.
Back off, pea-brains! Yeah, unless you want a knuckle sandwich! Shut it, thing 1 and thing 2!
Dante, What? I wanted to say I'm sorry. I'm sorry for punching you. I never should have resorted to violence. Can you forgive me? Dante said nothing. He just looked at me. He had a weird expression on his face, too. After a while, I just left. It was so awkward. Later, Allie and I were at the skate park, skating around like we usually did. I flew off the ramp, but while I was in the air, my feet slipped from the board.
Crystal, look out!
I was heading straight for the fence. If I didn't do something quick, I would be fence food. Suddenly, my body curled into a ball, and I flipped and landed on my feet, avoiding the fence, as if I were Spider-Man. No, as if I were a ninja.
That was awesome!
Really? Suddenly, we heard slow clapping, and one of Dante's goons appeared.
Wow! Amazing!
Then Dante and his other friend appeared.
What are you doing here? We've come to give you the payback you deserve!
You defied King Dante. You know what happens to people who defy the crown.
I felt my body ready into a defensive stance. No! Control yourself.
Come on, Dante. Let's show this little girl what you're made of. Yeah, go King Dante!
Dante stood there. I couldn't tell what he was thinking. What was he planning to do first? Punch me? Kick me? But a minute passed, and still he did nothing. He just stared at me. His goons looked confused, then one of them stepped forward.
Oh, of course. Why should King Dante do the dirty work? Let me beat this brat. Do it!
He advanced towards me, and I readied to defend myself, but suddenly the dude went flying and crashed to the ground. What had just happened? I looked up and saw Dante glaring at his friend with disgust. Don't you dare hurt her.
Huh?
Dante looked up at me. Was it just me, or was he blushing? I'm so sorry for how we've behaved, Crystal. Goodbye. And they left. Just like that. Allie and I looked at each other in shock. Had that really just happened? I had no idea what to make of that ordeal, but I knew my body was experiencing a crazy amount of emotions because that night I had a crazy nightmare. I was running down the road and someone was chasing me. For some reason, they had Allie's voice, even though it was a man. The man chased me and cornered me in an alleyway. I readied my hand back, then punched him with all my might. Suddenly, I heard a scream and woke up. Mom was on the ground, holding a bruised eye. Mom! Did I hit you? Mom quickly got up to comfort me. It's all right, honey. Really? I was horrified at myself. I couldn't stay here. I couldn't risk it. I ran between Mom's outstretched arms and leapt out of the open window. No! Crystal, wait! I ran down the street as fast as I could. It was pouring rain and I couldn't see clearly in the darkness. I crossed the street and narrowly missed being run over. I made it to a quieter part of town. I didn't know where I was heading. What should I do?
Lost, little girl?
6 men surrounded me. They all looked like crooked thieves.
Be a good little girl and give us all your money.
I don't have any on me.
We'll see about that.
They pressed in closer and just like that, I switched. I was in survival mode. My ears sharpened, my vision cleared. I was ready. They didn't stand a chance. I knocked out the first guy with a quick jab, then the other went down with my flying kick. Down they went, one after another, until just one remained. Wait! Please! I did a backflip, crushing his temple with my foot, and he too went crumbling down like a sandcastle. I breathed heavily. That was
awesome!
But then a tingling sensation spread over my body, and I spotted more thieves swarming out of the darkness.
Oh, you! You'll pay for what you did to our friends!
There were too many of them. I didn't think I could handle them all at once. Then suddenly a car screeched and skidded to a stop beside me. The door opened, and I couldn't believe who was in the back seat. Get in! I hesitated. Who would I rather? Dozens of thieves who were out to get me? Or Dante? It was a hard choice, but eventually I leapt into the car with Dante and we sped off. Thank you for saving me. Don't mention it. Dante asked his driver to take us to a scenic view of the ocean so we could cool down. I hopped out of the car as soon as we arrived and sat down on the cliff ledge. I heard Dante follow after me and sit down too. So, you gonna tell me what happened? Just got into a little trouble. What are you doing out at this time of night? Why do you care? Dante looked a little hurt. I sighed. I'm sorry. I'm just a little on edge. No, don't apologize. I should be the one. He looked away. What was up with him? Are you okay? Me? Yeah, of course. I wasn't the one who was just attacked by a gang of thieves. True. But still. I put my hand on his. You okay? He stiffened, then let out a sigh. I like you. I froze. What? I like you, okay? I like you. You're the only girl who actually cares, who actually looks at me, who sees me, who... He bit his lip. I've said too much, and I don't know what happened. Just like how my body moved of its own accord whenever it felt threatened, it moved of its own accord now, but for an entirely different reason.
I gently turned his face to me and leaned in and kissed him. It felt like my heart was dancing inside. When we finally broke away, Dante looked like he was on cloud 9. Wow. I was shocked by this sudden turn of events. Who knew I would be kissing King Dante? But he had changed. He wasn't the snobby King Dante he used to be. Listen, I'm throwing a birthday party tomorrow. You should come.
Sure. Can I bring Allie?
Allie?
My best friend.
Of course. Thanks.
I kissed him again on the cheek, and later he dropped me back home. When Mom saw me, she embraced me.
Where have you been? I've been worried sick.
Mom, you have no idea. The next day, Allie and I walked over to Dante's house. Did I say house? I meant mansion. Seriously, his dad had big bucks. We rang the doorbell and Dante opened the door.
Crystal, Allie, you both look amazing.
Thanks, Dante. We entered and he led us around to where the other party guests were gathered. We're about to cut the cake.
You know the rules, Dante.
You have to give the first slice to the person you like the most. Dante blushed, then promptly handed me the first slice without any hesitation. Now it was my turn to blush while the whole crowd whooped and hollered. I turned to look at Allie, but she seemed to have disappeared.
Are you enjoying the party?
It's great.
I'll be right back. I'm just gonna get us some juice.
But he didn't get right back. It was an hour before I saw him again, and only after I looked around the whole giant house. Eventually, I found him out on the balcony. Dante, what are you doing out here? Dante sniffled. Had he been crying? What's wrong?
Why do you care?
What? Dante, what are you talking about?
It's fine. You don't have to pretend anymore. Allie told me everything.
What?
She told me how you were only pretending to like me back. You were just doing some giant scheme to get me kicked out of school. Fine. See if I care. I'm moving out of town.
But Dante! He brushed past me and disappeared into another room. I was speechless. Why had Allie told him that? I went downstairs to try and find Allie. Have you seen Allie?
I think I saw her by the snacks table.
I ran over and sure enough, there she was, nibbling on some Doritos innocently.
Allie!
Allie spun around.
Oh, it's you.
Why did you do it, Allie?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Don't lie to me!
Just shut up and ninja your way back home.
My body began to move, and suddenly the bowl of punch was in my hands.
Wait, what are you?
Too late. I hurled the bowl of punch straight at her, and it smashed her right in the face. She was drenched. Everyone started laughing and pointing at her. Suddenly I felt guilty. Allie, I'm sorry, Wait! I followed after her down the street, searching for her blue hair. Suddenly I felt a tingling sensation again, and I turned to my left. There, in the bushes. I rushed over to find Allie sitting there on her own, drawing in the dirt. Allie?
Ah! How did you find me?
Allie, why did you tell Dante those lies? Allie looked like she was about to cry. Then finally she exploded.
I'm so sorry!
Huh? Allie collapsed onto me, holding me tight.
I'm sorry I did it!
But why did you?
Because I have a crush on Dante!
What?
I did the moment I saw him, but he only had eyes for you. I got so jealous. I'm so sorry, Crystal. I never should have let a guy come between us. Please, will you forgive me?
I looked at Crystal in her puffy eyes and smiled kindly. Of course I forgive you. You're my best friend. We hugged, then Allie stood up suddenly.
I'm gonna go tell Dante the truth right now.
Don't bother. I didn't really like him that much anyway. He's kinda needy. Allie looked shocked, then laughed out loud. I laughed with her. Then we linked arms and headed down the street.
Best friends for life!
Hi, my name is Tazi, and I was raised by apes. When I was 8 years old, I have vague memories of being brought to this island by my human parents. I don't know why they were here. All I know is that they never survived. One night, a jaguar came into our shelter and killed them. I would have been jaguar food next if it weren't for the apes. One ape, I call her Ma, suddenly appeared and defeated the jaguar before it could eat me. Ma then found me, just a little girl, all alone.
and decided to take me in. I've been living with the apes ever since. We don't have a language like humans do, but we communicate through our body movement. And since I was 8 years old when I was taken in by the apes, I could still speak some English, though not very well. It was tough adapting to this new life. I remember one time they were teaching me how to swing from tree to tree, and as I let go of the branch, it snapped and I nearly fell to my death. But Ma quickly jumped forward and rescued me. It's taken a lot of getting used to. But now, at 16 years of age, the apes have become my family, and I have become less of a human and more of an ape. Once my family started to trust me, they revealed to me something very special about them. Their hair is as strong as steel. For real! You could shoot an arrow at their back and it would not break through their hair armor. Because of this, I'd always felt self-conscious since I didn't have the same impenetrable hair as them on my body, but Ma always made sure I felt included. One day, we were patrolling the island's edge when suddenly Ma made a lot of noises and gestures towards the beach. We all gathered around and I gasped. There was what appeared to be a giant wooden thing on shore, which I now know was a boat. And from the boat, up popped a creature. And the strangest thing was, the creature looked just like me. Immediately, the other apes scattered and ran back home. Ma called me to come too, but curiosity got the better of me. I gestured to her to go on home while I went to investigate who this strange intruder was. Slowly, I watched the human as he walked towards the jungle's edge. He looked good. I suppose handsome was the word. And for some reason, I had this sudden urge to expose myself and come out into the open. Ah! Who are you? I crawled towards him, still on all fours. Strange. He walked just on his 2 legs. Curious, I slowly stood up in front of him, copying his movements. Who are you? Something clicked in my brain, an old memory. This language, English. I knew how to use it, but it was difficult. Me, Tazi. The guy looked flabbergasted. He stepped forward, and I reared back, hissing at him. Okay, I'm sorry. Do you live here? I processed his words, then nodded my head. By yourself? I shook my head. Family. You live here with your family. Who's your family? I pointed at the jungle. Apes. That's incredible. I stared at him, and he stared at me, and I felt a tug at my heart, although I wasn't quite sure why. Your name? He smiled. My name's Edward, and I'm an explorer from England. England? Yes, it's a cold and miserable place. Nothing like this beautiful island of yours. I just stared at him, unsure of what to say or do next. Listen, Tazi, would you or your family mind if I stayed on this island for a while? I won't make much noise and I promise I won't bother you. I'm just a man who loves to travel, and I would really like to get to know you better, if that's all right. It took me some time to understand everything he said, but eventually I nodded. Yes, is okay. Edward grinned and he looked even more handsome. I think my stomach fluttered. It was such a peculiar feeling that I'd never experienced before. Can we meet again, same time tomorrow, same place? I nodded again, slightly dreamy. Great! It's nice to meet you, Tazi. I just stared at him. What was he doing? Edward seemed to understand, then gently held my hand and placed it in his, then raised it up and down several times, shaking hands. This is what we call a handshake. I stared in shock. It felt so strange, but also familiar? I was so confused, but also excited. As you can tell, I was feeling a lot of emotions at once. The next day, I returned to the same spot at the same time of day, and sure enough, there was Edward. This time, he had his own tiny tent on the beach with a small fire. He also had a stack of objects beside him, and it took me a lot of searching past memories to remember these were books. I've brought some English text to show you. If you would like, I could help you improve your English. I smiled. Okay. Thank you. Edward seemed to blush. Why was he blushing? I brushed the thought away and leaned in. Little Jane wanted to go to the market. But little Jane didn't know which way to go. So little Jane, it went on and on like that. For hours, Edward helped me learn more English. And by the end of our session, I had improved a lot. It seemed there had been a little vault in my brain where I had locked up my memories of English. But after Edward had helped me out, the vault had opened and now I could speak very well. Thank you, Edward. This has been so much fun. Of course, Tarzy. Anytime. Will you be back again tomorrow? Okay. I can trust you, right? Edward held a hand over his heart. Of course you can. I hesitated, but then I hugged Edward and ran off. Back behind the cover of trees, I turned to look at him to see his reaction. And he looked very flustered, but also very happy. I swung back through the jungle to where my family were resting. But when I arrived, I found them all gathered in a group. When I tried to enter their space to go to sleep, one of them screamed at me and pushed me away. I looked at Ma. She couldn't even make eye contact with me. I looked at all of their body language and I knew precisely what they were saying. You're not welcome here anymore. Tears welled in my eyes. Fine! I cried. They all looked at me strangely since I was speaking English. I don't need you anyway! I ran off, running on 2 legs as fast as I could, all the way back to Edward's tent. It was nighttime by now, so when I burst into his tent, he was very startled. Tarzy, are you okay? I leapt forward and hugged him. My family? They kicked me out! Can I stay with you? Edward looked very sad and hugged me closer. Of course you can. I'll look after you. I sighed deeply and that night I slept wrapped in his arms. The next day, when I woke up, I immediately wanted to go back to my ape family and apologize for what I'd said. Even if they wouldn't understand, Edward convinced me not to. Maybe it's best if you just stay here with me, where you belong. You are human after all. I don't know, Edward. They're my family. Look, I'm not saying you forget about them, but maybe taking a break would be helpful. Maybe you're right. Edward held my hand softly. Of course, it's entirely your decision. I'll stay with you. I was hoping you'd say that. For many weeks, Edward and I spent every day together. We got really close, and eventually I decided to tell him the secret about my ape family. They're very precious. Oh, I'm sure they are. No, I mean, very precious. They have a very special ability. Oh? They have very strong hair. Strong hair? No, seriously, it's like strong as steel. Why are you laughing?
It's just funny the way you said it. Strong hair.
I smiled, then kissed him on the cheek. I'm so lucky to have you.
Trust me, I'm the lucky one.
I was the happiest I'd ever been in my life. Well, except for the fact that my ape family had ostracized me, but she can't win at everything. Suddenly, Edward looked very serious.
There's something I have to tell you, Tarzy.
What is it?
Well, initially I came here alone, but tomorrow I think some of my other friends will be arriving here.
Your other friends?
Yes, but if you don't want them to be here, I'll tell them to leave straight away.
No. I'd love to meet your friends.
Great! I can't wait.
The next day, just as he'd said, 2 giant boats arrived, loaded with other men just like Edward. Although they weren't nearly as handsome as he was. They arrived on shore with loud laughter, stomping along the plants and sand without any regret for the noise they were making. I was a little mad at first, but seeing Edward's happy face made me calm down.
Men, meet Tarzy. Boy, she is gorgeous. You were raised by monkeys. Apes. That's mental. Bonkers.
I laughed nervously. These men were certainly interesting. I wasn't sure if I quite liked humans.
We brought your pretty friend a dress to wear. Yes, something much better than those awful clothes of hers. Men, don't speak to her that way.
No, Edward, it's all right. I'll wear the dress. Thank you for your gift. The men smiled, but for some reason their smiles made me uncomfortable. I went to change into the dress, and when I emerged, Edward looked in awe.
You're even more beautiful than before.
I blushed while the other men whooped and shouted. I did a little twirl. It felt nice. But then, suddenly, the cheerful shouts from the men turned into loud screams from the jungle. Emerging menacingly was my family. The apes. Beasts! Monsters! No, wait, they're not bad, But just as I was defending my family, I watched in horror as my cousin ran out and grabbed a barrel, throwing it and knocking one of the men out. They all erupted in screams. Quick! Grab a weapon! The apes attacked the humans. I knew my family was only doing this because they thought the humans were invading them, but they were wrong. It wasn't like that. Quickly, I ran in between the humans and apes. I went on all fours now, and I gestured at my family to retreat. Ma was there. She looked at me in my dress, a human dress, and she looked shocked. Ma! She backed away and ran off into the jungle. The others followed after her, leaving behind the chaos they had caused. I feel terrible. Because of me, the men's belongings had been destroyed, and some of them had been injured. Later that night, Edward and I were working on my English again in his tent. Edward, I feel terrible about today. Don't be. It's not your fault. But my family, they were doing what they thought was right. I mean, I can understand why they did it. From their point of view, we're invading their land. I'm glad you understand. But still, it's not right what they did. Perhaps. Edward, can I ask you a question?
Sure, Tarzy. What is it?
How do you tell someone you love them?
Well, you do this.
Edward lifted his hand and cupped my cheek. I've been thinking a lot about you, and I've realized that I'm in love. I love you, Edward.
I love you too.
We kissed for the first time, and it was new and wonderful. At that moment, I took back what I believed about humans. They couldn't all be bad, because after all, Edward was human. After we kissed, I left his tent to go sleep in a tree somewhere. When suddenly, I heard noises coming from within the jungle. They were human voices. Curious, I snuck into the jungle, climbed a tree, and headed towards the voices. What I discovered made my mind implode with shock. Edward's friends were all gathered in a circle in hushed voices.
We should do it at dawn.
Agreed. We'll take the apes and lock them up.
We're gonna be rich once we get them back home. Yes! And that stupid little girl has no idea we're about to steal those apes for their special strong hairs.
They all broke into obnoxious laughter while I cowered in shame. How dare they? I had to tell Edward immediately. Surely he could talk some sense into his friends. I rushed back as fast as I could and made it back to Edward's tent, waking him up. Edward! Edward!
Tarzy, what happened?
Your friends, they said they're gonna lock my family up and bring them to England. You have to stop them, Edward.
What?
Yes! You'll tell them not to, won't you? I expected him to scoop me up in his arms and tell me of course he would. Everything would be all right. But he didn't. Not by any stretch of the imagination.
Are you ready?
Edward was speaking to someone behind me. I turned to find the other men at the tent's entrance.
Yes, boss. Good. Sorry, kid. You were right to live with the apes. Us humans, we're not very good creatures.
He jerked his head at the men.
Lock her up!
What? No! Edward! Edward ignored my screams as the men dragged me into a cage and locked me inside. I pushed desperately, trying to break the bars, but to no avail. How could you do this to me, Edward?
It's not personal, Tarzy. Just business.
Edward left me behind without another word. I broke down into tears, feeling great agony in my soul. It felt like my heart was literally breaking in two. The next morning when I woke up, my eyes puffy from crying, I cried out in horror to find my family locked up in tiny cages all around the camp. The men, meanwhile, were laughing at the poor, innocent creatures as they tried to break free. But just like me, they were trapped. Edward, let them go! Edward glanced at me. Please, Edward, I'll do anything.
You know, it's a shame, Tarzy. You're so beautiful. You would have made a nice wife.
Yes, I will be your wife. I will do as you say. Whatever you want, I will do it. Edward walked closer, intrigued. Just let them go, and I will do as you say. And maybe we can... Just as Edward leaned forward, I reached through the bars and grabbed his collar. I yanked him hard against the cage, knocking him out, then grabbed the keys at his belt. Humans could be so stupid sometimes. Had he really fallen for that trap? I quickly unlocked my cage and stepped out. Finally, freedom! She's out! Tazi's out! The men all swarmed around me in a panic when they noticed I had escaped. I cracked my neck, rolled my joints, and squatted down on all fours like the true ape that I was. Men, I readied myself. This may hurt. I pounced at them, knocking down one, then the other like flies. They didn't stand a chance against me. This was my island, my terrain. I had grown up here my entire life, while they were mere invaders. I fought them all off, and finally I knocked out the last man. He went crashing into the sand like an empty sack of potatoes. I turned to my family, all locked up. I quickly unlocked all of their cages with the keys I'd stolen, and we gathered together and embraced. I'd missed them so much, and it seemed they had finally accepted me back as well.